Welcome to REIN, the Real Estate Investor Growth Network with your hostess, Jen Josie. Join like-minded real estate investors and accelerate your business towards greatness. You will hear step-by-step strategies for success, interviews with real estate rock stars, and we will dig deep into past projects where we bear it all, including the good, the bad, and some just plain ugly. So get excited. Here's the bestower of badassery herself, the real Jen Josie. Listener discretion is advised.
Hi, and welcome back. I'm Jen Josie, creator of REIN, the Real Estate Investor Growth Network. Whoop, whoop. On today's episode, we have a guest that will be sharing one of their past projects. We will let you decide if it was good or bad or just plain ugly. But before we begin, here's today's badassery bestowment, my little badass gift to you. Today's topic is private money lending. Being a private money lender is your opportunity to become the bank, earning the profits just like a bank would. It's a great way to generate cash flow and produce a predictable income stream while at the same time provide excellent security and safety for your principal investment. You can do what the banks have been doing for years, make a profitable return on investments backed by real estate. There is no other investment vehicle like it. When we work with private money lenders, the process is simple. We find an undervalued property and then borrow the funds from you to purchase and renovate the property. At the time of purchase, you receive a mortgage on the home along with a promissory note, deed of trust, and hazard insurance policy where you are named the mortgage holder for your protection in case of fire or natural disaster. The next stage is the property renovation. Once the renovations are complete, we'll list and sell the property. When it's time for closing, you'll receive your principal plus interest payment, typically 10%. It's just that simple. The goal is to continue turning that money for you while you make substantial profits so you keep coming back to us, building a long-term, mutually beneficial relationship. So if you have equity in your home or a 401k or a large savings account or sleep on a mattress full of 20s, you too can grow your money faster by becoming a private money lender. Now on to today's episode of the Real Estate Investor Growth Network podcast. We have with us Michael Hamilton. Michael is going to share a devastating story about one of his past projects. If you own any short-term rentals or are considering getting into the short-term rental business, you will want to take the time to hear every word of his story. So welcome to the show, Michael.
Hey, Jen.
Hello.
Excited to be on this badass podcast today.
And we're in the same state. Yay, North Carolina.
That's right.
And you and Maria is joining us as well, but had to quickly put your youngin' down to sleep. Is that correct?
That's right. You know, the life of the real estate investor, we take care of the kids too. And, stoked to be able to do that. But yeah, she's just bottling up and hopefully we'll get a chance for her to come in here too.
Yes, would love to have Maria on here as well. So give me a quick little background before we get into the story about your Airbnb. How did you get involved with real estate?
Wow. Earlier in my life, I read investment books. And then when I had entered corporate America, was frustrated,
What'd you do? What'd you do in corporate America?
I did some different things. I sold lighting retrofits to commercial companies to help them reduce their lighting loads. I did sales for a while. Ugh. I worked for a tree company. I was an ocean lifeguard. I like to live near the beach, all those kinds of things. And, when you look at, moving forward and how retirement accounts grow, a buddy of mine at one point said, "Hey, do you want to come to this real estate investing seminar with me?" And I kind of laughed at him. I was like, "Dude, I'm not coming to this thing with you." He's like, "Look, man, you can leave if you want to leave, but just come, give it a chance." And I wound up going to a real estate seminar, with a company that taught process and, it made a lot of sense to me. And they showed path to investing, how to raise money. I think it was one of the top two talking about as we were getting started here, that holds a lot of people back. And so once a lot of those fears and those obstacles were accounted for, was able to move forward and get started. So I've participated in dozens of flips. I've been a private lender. I've done new constructions now. And, the primary business model that I'm involved in is vacation rentals, near the coast. So coastal vacation rentals.
So this is your business. And I mean, I own vacation rentals myself. It's a very lucrative business, lots of money to be made. And there are so many people wanting to get into this industry, but you are going to share a story. And this is not a story. This is your life right now. This is what's going on. So take us back to just before June of last year, June 30th of 2021. So tell us a little bit before then.
Right. So imagine you're a vacation rental host or an owner, and maybe you rent some Airbnbs. And I don't necessarily clean the properties, but that particular day, this was a new property, and myself and Maria, we had done the inspection. We do the inspections to make sure that everything's up in order. Property was looking good. Now, this particular property we had closed on it as our newest vacation rental, November of 2020. Put close to $100,000 into it. So really only got the certificate of occupancy right around May. So we were really only eligible to start renting it in June after a few tests and stuff like that. So, inspection goes well. And the guest that day, this is the third renter of the house, checks in. It's a couple around 40 years old.
And how many other rentals had you owned prior to this? I mean, which number was this for you?
Four other Airbnbs.
Okay.
We had, initiated and stuff like this. So this one took advantage of all the stuff we had learned, all the best things that we had done in previous ones, and a lot of guest requests. And so it's in the afternoon now, we're settling down, late afternoon, around 7:00. My phone starts ringing off the hook, and it's a neighbor, but I didn't initially pick it up because I just didn't want to. And all of a sudden you get that ding from Airbnb. You're familiar with the ding.
Oh yeah.
And, you get this message that comes through, and it's just a little snippet. It's not the whole message, but the first part of it says, "Sorry, I have to inform you, your house is on fire."
Oh.
We've vacated the property and we've called the fire department, right? So your heart drops. You're basically like, is this real? And then it becomes real. Call the neighbor. Tony says, "Your shit's on fire." His house actually had some adjacent fire damage. The blaze was so high that it started to melt the siding of the adjacent property. That's how it, started. That's how we got notified. And then we arrive, right? So by the time you arrive, the fire department's already been called. They're monitoring the situation. They're roping everything off. You can't do anything. You think you could go there and do something, but you can't do anything. You just sit and you watch. By that time, the fire was pretty much extinguished, but they were taking care of the venting and the smoke. So you're sitting across the street, literally watching the fire department with a chainsaw cut holes into your roof. And why are they doing that? Because they're trying to stop the fire, to vent it, to get all those things out. So that was the day of the fire. I did meet the tenant that day. And, I haven't had any communication since then. And it's probably the best thing, at this point. But, he told me, he's like, "Look, I was having trouble getting the grill started." We use the same model grill at all of our properties, but we don't use propanes anymore. He's having trouble getting it started, and we leave 2 tanks on site. During that inspection, I noticed that the tank that was on there wasn't empty. So we leave the other one just in case, somebody has a scenario where they run out in the middle of grilling. They don't got to go to the store to go pick up propane to continue grilling. So he was having so much trouble with that first tank. He took it off because he wasn't able to get it started. He put on the full tank, put all 4 burners on high, and said, "I left it for some time." I don't know how long, but it was enough time for the fire to burn through the propane hose that actually goes down to the tank. And so by the time he realized it, the brand new full tank is, blowing out gas. And it wasn't on a deck, it was down on the ground. But that day the wind happened to be blowing towards the house. So as the blaze got big enough, it started to catch the deck from the grade, from the ground.
Michael, I am sick to my stomach hearing this. Oh my goodness. And because, being an owner of Airbnbs myself and all the work that goes into it. And we have a quad right now, and it's like a swanky part of downtown Raleigh, and I'm just putting all my love into it. And so this is heartbreaking to hear. And oh my goodness. So, and then to sit there across the street and watch them like poke holes through your roof. And so I got to ask this though. So the documentation, because I know this is going to be an issue here. You're having a physical conversation with the guests at the time, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And so was it like, what do you do next? Like what happens?
Yeah, well, the thing that you do next is you call your primary insurance company, right? And I want to say this first. I mean, we're grateful. Nobody was hurt. right? In this scenario,
Yes,
nobody
thank
was
goodness.
hurt, nobody was injured. It could have been worse from that perspective.
And sorry,
so
listeners, I had read that part, so I just zoomed right past it. But yes,
Right,
absolutely.
no.
So
And,
glad that no one was hurt.
right.
Yes.
And on the flip side of it, though, is that there's a lot of great people that missed out on a fantastic vacation opportunity as well, because of the situation that had happened and the situation that we're still in with insurance and Airbnb's air cover, but predominantly Airbnb's air cover. So what you do next, you contact your insurance company. We had an insurance policy that's custom penned for vacation rentals, assesses the unique risks of vacation rentals. Started the claims process, but during that, they were very, very adamant. They said, "Was this an Airbnb guest?" And we said, "Yes, it was." They said, "You absolutely need to submit a claim through their host guarantee program." So we were intending to do that on our own, but also our insurance company, Lloyd's of London, was coaching us to make sure that we did that step. So we took it, we did those two steps. Now, when you have a claim of this size, that's going to be well north of $350,000 with the different buckets that are involved. It's very complex. It's going to be a full-time job. So, I'm not telling anybody what to do. I elected to hire a public adjuster. When you get in an insurance scenario, the insurance company hires an adjuster that acts on their behalf. We wanted an adjuster that acts on our behalf, that looks out for our interests. And then the same with Airbnb. Airbnb's host guarantee, air cover, whatever they call it, this $1 million program that they flaunt, they are very clear that it's not insurance, but they actually contract insurance adjusters and an insurance company, Crawford and Company, to administer their entire process. So they are doing insurance adjusting, even though they're calling their program not insurance. At the end of the day, it's a contract. Those are some granular details, but that's what happens next. So that starts the process of now 3 different parties, myself having adjusting, the insurance company, and Airbnb, sending out individuals to evaluate the building, to evaluate the contents, and then also to take a look at what is the income that's lost here? Because in my policy, I had income loss. And also in Airbnb's policy, they tell you that they're going to cover your lost bookings, that sort of thing. So all 3 of those are eligible for assessed all those situations.
Wow. Well, so I got to ask, have you even been paid? We are coming up, when this is getting released, it is going to be right at the year mark when this episode is released. Have you been paid? What's going on with the project or with the property?
Yeah, a lot of people are surprised when I mention this. I haven't been paid a dime yet, or a dollar. What we've learned is a lot throughout this process. And the first 6 months, while we thought both Airbnb and my insurance company were adjusting, we actually found out from the insurance adjuster that it was just a bunch of their attorneys, both Airbnb's and Lloyd's of London, getting together to figure out, well, who should pay first? My insurance company said to them, hey, can we split it 50-50? This was a big bonus for them because possibly they weren't going to have to shoulder as much of the money. So within the first 6 months, we later came out to find out that we were being delayed because we're trying to find out who should pay first. Airbnb also funds an independent fire investigation, probably costs $10,000 or more.
Wow.
Now, when you have any fire, the local fire marshal does an investigation, and his investigation was a little shorter, but he came to the conclusion that the grill was left unattended for a long enough period of time, that the guest had an involvement in the fire. So in order to be eligible for Airbnb's program, the guest has to be proven to be a cause of the damage, right? In this case, it's a fire. So they fund this very, very large fire investigation. I have communication with the investigator because they're on my property. They're asking me questions, all these sorts of things. When he's done with his investigation, I say, hey, can I see the report? And they say, and actually Airbnb, and I actually asked their adjuster to ask both. I asked the fire investigator and I asked the adjuster that Airbnb was using. I said, can I see the fire report? They said, no, Airbnb is not granting you access to this. So I said to the fire investigator, I said, well, can you just tell me what you found? He said, look, these things take a long time, but he said, I cannot eliminate the guest as a cause of the fire. And that was probably not the news that Airbnb was looking for. They probably wanted the guest to be eliminated. How could they have eliminated him? Maybe it was an electrical, code issue or something, but I did full permits and everything. You heard at the beginning of this, I needed to get a certificate of occupancy before the property was ready.
Right.
House was inspected, everything was permitted, everything was done appropriately. So that's I got a little sidetracked, but that's what happens next there.
Well, because I asked you, because you had a conversation with them saying, I lit all 4 burners and then I walked away for, and I don't know how long the time was. And they verbally told you this, but you don't have that documented. So like, are you able to let Airbnb know I had a conversation with them, or are they not even considering that?
They have a specific list of documents within their program that they request. They're not asking for additional documents. Now we have a running list of conversations, whether with all different parties throughout this program. So we have faxes as they come through that we're still updating to this day because it's still an ongoing scenario. We do have that documented on our side. But that is not something that's come up, for them to be eligible for their program, is that the fire investigator that couldn't eliminate them as a cause of the fire. And that's what's happened, to this point.
Wow. Well, I watched the video of you walking through afterwards, the YouTube video, and listeners, I am going to have a link at the end of our show notes here. You've got to see what happened here. So now what happens to the house? Like, is it just sitting there? Are you doing anything to it? Can you do anything to it?
Right. So, I mean, you have a fire scenario. It's pretty devastating. And if it's your first one, and hopefully you never have any, this particular one wasn't as clear cut. About 35% of the house was fire damaged. And a lot of the photos are from the front of the house. And so it started in the back of the house and the wind was blowing it forward. But 100% of the house was also smoke damage. So there's fire damage, but then there's also smoke damage. And so, you start to get an idea of what the building numbers were. We're real estate investors. We're looking at the market too. What makes more sense here? Repairing, basically completely disassembling, taking down to the studs a house and repairing the framing and then going all the way back, or demolishing that structure and building new and possibly bigger. So after, it wasn't an easy decision at the time, but now looking back, it feels like it's the right decision. So we decided to demolish it. We did that back in December, and we were very clear with Airbnb and anybody that was still needed access to the property. We gave them 6 or maybe even almost 2 weeks of, 6 to 8 weeks of notice, 2 months of notice, because even though they had done multiple on-site inspections, all of a sudden they needed to do this contents inspection. We notified them for about 8 weeks, and I said, look, I can't wait anymore. You're holding up my life. I need to move forward. So if you're not even going to pay us on the contents, that's okay, because I can go after excess on my insurance policy. That's another way that this works. That's probably something we'll get into, but that's what happened. So we demolished it, and we are almost done framing the new structure. We'll start the rough-in of the mechanicals here shortly.
You're paying out of pocket for this.
Yeah, I mean, fortunately, raising money, so key. I raised money from people. I'm fortunate to have a very successful business, so we have resources of our own. We didn't want to pour all of our own resources into it. We're actually building another house, closing on a lot, and building our own house because we're occupying one of our rentals right now at the moment. But it's been pretty heavy. So one of the things I'd say is if you're in one of these larger loss scenarios with the air cover program, don't bank on being paid very quickly. They market this thing, and I know we have some of the graphics from them specifically, but they market it as top to bottom coverage. It's free for every host. And the turnaround they typically say is 2 weeks. Now I'm sitting here at almost a year.
Oh my gosh.
With not even an offer of a settlement, not an offer. I have an idea where the numbers are, but I haven't heard from anybody at Airbnb. And then who knows what the next step is in terms of how long it takes to actually get a check cut. So it's going to be pretty significant.
Now I'm familiar. And so Air Cover, that's their newer insurance one, correct? That started kind of during COVID. Am I correct?
Yeah, they've had multiple iterations of this program. It used to go by, when we applied for it a year ago, or put in the claim, it was called a different program. It was called the host guarantee. Okay. And I'm not sure, maybe, I used to work in corporate. I wasn't allowed to use the word guarantee. Maybe there was something there. So I had to rephrase that. But I think it had another iteration. So it's been at least a couple iterations, and I've noticed some changes in here that have actually happened. It's a tricky program. It promises a lot, but in my experience, it hasn't really lived up to what they're marketing.
So what does Air Cover actually cover? Because, I'm listening to this situation, and we have an Airbnb just outside of Boone, North Carolina, and they had a drought in the summer season, and our well went dry. We had a couple times where the well got really low and guests were, the water would get shut off, and then they just have to wait a couple hours. But then it got to a point where we're like, we just can't keep, doing this to guests. So it got so bad at one point, and they said, this is it. You're just going to need to replace your well. This has been since Christmas Eve that the well went completely dry, and that we have been waiting to get it replenished. So is there anything for that type of situation that I can get, for my loss of income coming in? We've had this Airbnb almost 4 years, and is this something where I can do a claim just for the loss of income through air cover?
It's a really good question. And what I would recommend is to submit the claim. My answer is, I don't know. Okay. I'm not their program administrator. And I've seen a lot of reviews on the program now that as I've gotten more into it, where some people have gotten paid, but a lot of people have been very disappointed and dissatisfied with the way the program is written. As you get more into it, you start to find it's designed to limit the liability. So a lot of insurance policies are written as replacement cost value. Airbnb's air cover is written as actual cash value. That's a significant difference. Okay. That's a huge difference. There are tremendous amounts of exclusions in this air cover scenario. I'm not going to call it a policy. I'm going to call it a contract. This is important. This is how it differs. So when you buy insurance is governed by laws, and there's timelines that if there's a claim that's qualified, it needs to be paid. Airbnb's air cover is a contract. So when you list on Airbnb, it's a contract. So the only way to enforce this contract is to get legal help or legal counsel. If for some reason Airbnb is not living up to what it's saying it's going to live. But in terms of the well, I would check that they do list out what they cover. They do list out what they don't cover. But a sure way to put it in too is put in the claim and see what they say, right? And there's that.
Wow. Well, I can hear from your experience, this is not a very good experience for you working with this and you having to get your own attorney, etc. I said at the beginning of the show, I said a badassery bestowment, which is just a little nugget for the listeners. Do you have a badassery bestowment that you can share with my listeners on this whole situation?
Absolutely. Key takeaways, right? Things like that, badass things to do. I mean, no, I mentioned this in there, so this is one of the takeaways. We've changed over from propane grills. You learn a lot about fire after you have a fire. So in this scenario, we've moved over to charcoal grills. That's one thing. There's a lot less risk of a charcoal grill having this type of a scenario.
Is there a law, by the way, of like how close they are to the house or anything? Like, do you suggest anything? Because I know some places have grills right there on the decks. And I saw from the video that yours was on the ground, like, underneath the deck area. But what you saw in the video is the grill was moved under the deck afterwards. It was not under a deck. We would never put a grill under a deck. It was near the deck, probably a distance away, but on the ground. At that time we hadn't. We always had put the grills in particular areas where we believe they were safe. Gotcha. Now here's what can happen in an Airbnb. People will take your grill and move it on the deck. Of course. People will take your grill and they will move it under the house. And then they'll go drink a bottle of tequila and come back in 30 minutes, right? So, that's one thing I would say there. And, consult an attorney, have capital available, have reserves available, exactly how you started this. Also, don't expect a quick payout. And, I recommend hiring a public adjuster because this is a tremendous scenario with just the stuff that we have to do without all the little communications and nonsense. So, that has helped us tremendously. And there's one other thing too that I'll just mention about air cover. There was an extra. So before we elected to use air cover, they were telling us about the program and they said, okay, well, after the fire, now after the investigation, now you're eligible 100%. There's no way we're out of this. They said we expect the adjusting and the settlement to take about 2 months. Now on the paper there it says 2 weeks, but the adjuster told me it should take about 2 months. From that December 1 mark. So we're almost approaching 7 months or a whole year total from that. So, you're on Airbnb, I'm on Airbnb. I get reviewed every time I'm on Airbnb. One of those categories is accuracy. Mm-hmm. I get reviewed accuracy every time. I have about 1,000 reviews on Airbnb.
And when I look at this program, I'll review Airbnb. It's absolutely not accurate. There's nothing accurate in my experience, and I can only speak from my experience, about the Air Cover program.
Michael, that is so well said. And listeners, I mean, this is such a huge lesson to learn. Unfortunately, Michael, I mean, this has been awful. And I can hear the little one in the background. This was he or she. What do you have? A boy or girl?
It's a little boy, Tyler.
And it sounds like Tyler's young enough that he was not even born when this happened. Am I correct in saying that?
You know what? He was conceived, and he actually spent a little bit of time in that bohemian bungalow before the fire. But he doesn't know it, right? He doesn't know it yet. So,
how your life has changed so much from here, So now you have a baby. Maria is, we didn't get her on here, but I mean, this is just so important and such a valuable lesson. And I appreciate you sharing it with the listeners. Any final words about this whole situation?
No, it's just, just pros hire pros, right? That's from different organizations that we've all been in, and personal development, things like that. I mean, just get help. I mean, seek out support. I mean, this is a nasty scenario for me, but a good friend of mine, Noah, who you know as well, was like, there's nobody better actually that I think that this could happen to, because, you'll figure your way out. So, we'll continue the update on this. We'll continue the conclusion. We'll update you and folks that are listening as to what happens at the end of this. What does it? Do you wind up going to court? Do you what winds up happening here? What do you wind up getting paid? All those kinds of things.
And this is your business, and just like Noah said, you also have the skills and the mindset, the skill set to share exactly what is needed for people who are getting into this industry or people who are already in this industry. So I truly appreciate everything. Thank you. And Maria stepped in for a minute here. So I do have a second half of the podcast, which is what makes you, Michael, a badass. And I use the acronym BADASS, and the first letter is B for book. So what is a book that's made a huge difference in your life?
Wow. There's a lot of books that have made a huge difference in my life. Business wise, I'll say, there's a very popular book about systemizing businesses, The E-Myth by Michael Gerber. But then in terms of like a life book, Viktor Frankl's book that he wrote about when he was in the Holocaust, I forget the name of the book. A Man's Search for Meaning. Man's Search for Meaning is more on a personal level.
Gotcha. Thank you. The first A in badass is advice. What's the best piece of advice you've ever received? Get insurance?
For the purpose of this podcast, we're going to use the advice of there's no substitute for having correct insurance. And, in this scenario, the way this works too is you actually have the ability to choose which policy goes first. I could have chosen Lloyd's of London to go first. I could have chosen Airbnb to go. I chose Airbnb to go first. Could have been the opposite way. The other one pays excess. That's kind of an important detail.
Very good. Yes. All right. The D in badass is drive. What drives you to be successful? And I think I hear who that is.
Yeah, I think you see it right there. You saw him come in. I got a new drive, baby, family.
Oh, he is adorable. All right. The second A in badass is aspiration. I'm a big goal setter. So what is a goal you are currently working on?
I want to move back to California. Buy a place in California. Yeah.
Why are you dissing on NC? Come on now.
No. I'm not completely moving out of NC, but it's like to have a place out there too.
Very nice. All right. The first S in badass is systems. What systems do you have in place to help you achieve success?
Oh, systems, financing systems, operational systems,
Do you manage your own properties?
Maria does manage them. Okay. I'm a general contractor. I'm a builder. So I'm doing building now and things of that nature, but she's the one that manages this particular business. And I, look for more opportunities and stuff like that.
I told my husband one time, I always wanted to sleep with a general contractor. So he got his GC license.
Well, then, check off the boxes.
There. I just hate taking tests and stuff. I'm like, come on, it'll be just so much better for our business. So he did get his GC license. All right. The final S in badass is success. What does success mean to Michael Hamilton?
What does success mean? I guess success means, doing what you want, right? And designing the lifestyle the way that you want. I mean, it's not necessarily a money I think people that are really successful have a lot of time freedom. So that's kind of what I like and see is have a lot of time freedom, have your financials taken care of, and be in a good situation, be happy.
Well, Michael, I truly appreciate you coming on here and sharing this story. It's a horrific story. Glad nobody was hurt. And it is just something that is so important for the listeners to learn about. So thank you. And you have a book as well. Can we just quickly talk about your book?
Yeah, a while ago, there was a coach and a mentor. I've had coaches and mentors. I believe in that. That was watching myself and Maria build this business. And he said, Mike, you should write a book about that. So we wrote a book, Vacation Rental Confidential. And there was a lot of people that asked us, how did you get started in this? How have you, grown your business? How do you produce, plus $100,000 per, single family house, things like that. And I said, look, it's a long conversation. And so I just put down a lot of my thoughts and, the different processes and belief systems and, the things that have helped us get to where we are. Are we experts? We're very, very knowledgeable. We're expert level. We're not perfect is where I'm going with this. We're always learning. We're always learning. We're always getting better.
And how can the listeners find out what ends up happening with this property? I mean, I know you're shared.
Yeah. So we have a blog on our website. We update that. We will absolutely notify you, Jen, for that. And so somewhere we'll just make sure the listeners can, have a look at, how does this thing end up? What goes on here? What is going to happen in this scenario?
Good. Well, I would love to get that blog. I will put it in the show notes for everyone. And Michael, thank you. Thank you, Maria in the background and baby Tyler. And that is all. Thank you for listening. And we will catch you on the next episode. Now go out there and share your badassery. And don't forget, make it a great day. Take care. Bye-bye. Whoop, whoop.
Thank you for listening to RAIN, the Real Estate Investor Growth Network. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcasting platform so you never miss an episode. If you need more badassery, you can follow Jen Josie by visiting therealjenjosie.com or become a member of RAIN by registering on rainmastermind.com.